When he saved an elderly woman, he thought he was just doing the right thing. But his act of kindness cost him everything. Fired without a second thought, this black waiter refused to let injustice win, and what happened next turned his life around in ways no one expected. The bustling sounds of a diner filled the air, clinking plates, murmured conversations, and the occasional laughter from a corner table. Among the chaos stood Marcus, a black waiter in his mid-30s, moving quickly between tables with a practiced efficiency. He'd worked at this diner for years, earning the respect of regular customers with his warm smile and unwavering dedication. But not everyone appreciated his efforts. Marcus often felt the weight of unfair treatment, small comments, ignored contributions, and the unspoken feeling that he had to work twice as hard to earn the same respect as his peers. Despite this, he kept his head high, determined to make the most of his role. One chilly afternoon, an elderly woman entered the diner. Her frail frame and hesitant steps caught Marcus's attention immediately. She looked lost, her hands trembling as she clutched a small handbag. She scanned the room, her eyes filled with uncertainty, before settling into a corner booth. Marcus approached her with his usual kindness. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Can I get you something warm to drink? It's cold out there." The woman smiled weakly. "Just a coffee, please. And thank you." As Marcus returned with her coffee, he noticed her struggling to open her wallet. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the clasp, and after a moment, she sighed in frustration. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I don't think I can pay for this." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Don't worry about it, ma'am. This one's on me," he said, sliding the coffee gently across the table. Her eyes welled up with tears, and she reached out to hold his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea how much this means to me." For Marcus, it wasn't a big deal, just the right thing to do. But the moment didn't go unnoticed. From across the room, the manager, Mr. Calloway, watched the interaction with a scowl. Calloway had a reputation for running a tight ship, and he wasn't one to tolerate what he saw as charity. As the woman finished her coffee and left the diner with a small wave of gratitude, Marcus felt a sense of fulfillment. But his moment of kindness was cut short when Calloway called him into the back office. "Marcus," Calloway began, his tone cold. "What was that back there?" Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" "The lady couldn't pay, so I covered it." Calloway's eyes narrowed. "We don't give out free meals here. You know the rules." "It was just a cup of coffee," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "She was struggling. I thought it was the right thing to do." Calloway leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. "Right or wrong isn't your call. You've been here long enough to know how things work. I can't have employees breaking policy. You're done here." Marcus stared in disbelief. "You're firing me for helping someone." "That's exactly what I'm doing," Calloway replied. "Pack up your things." The weight of Calloway's words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. As he walked out of the diner, the familiar sounds of clinking plates and conversations faded into the background. The place he had poured years of his life into had turned its back on him for doing something good. Standing outside in the cold, Marcus looked at the ground, his breath visible in the chilly air. His mind raced with anger, sadness, and disbelief. But beneath it all, a small ember of determination began to grow. The walk home felt longer than usual that evening. Marcus replayed the manager's words over and over in his mind, each step heavy with disbelief and frustration. He had spent years at that diner, giving his best every single day, and in a moment, it had all been ripped away. When he reached his small apartment, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, staring at a pile of bills that now seemed more daunting than ever. The weight of his situation began to sink in. How could they do this? He muttered to himself, for helping someone. The next few days were difficult. Marcus applied for jobs at nearby restaurants and businesses, but opportunities were scarce. The sting of being fired unjustly lingered. But his anger wasn't just for himself. It was for the elderly woman, too. He couldn't shake the image of her trembling hands and quiet gratitude. One evening, as Marcus scrolled through his phone, he came across a local news article. The headline caught his attention: "Good Samaritan waiter fired for helping elderly woman." He clicked the link and, to his surprise, saw his own story. A customer who had been in the diner that day had witnessed the incident and shared it online. The story spread quickly. Within hours, the article had been shared hundreds of times on social media, with comments pouring in from strangers expressing outrage and support. "Unbelievable," one comment read. "How could they fire someone for showing compassion?" Another said, "We need more people like Marcus in this world. He deserves better." Marcus was overwhelmed. He had never sought attention or recognition for his actions, but seeing so many people rally behind him was both humbling and empowering. For the first time since he was fired, he felt like his kindness had made an impact. The next morning, Marcus received a phone call. "Hi, Marcus," a warm voice said. "My name is Evelyn. I'm the director of a local charity organization, and I read your story. I wanted to say how inspiring it was to see someone stand up for an elderly person in need. We'd like to invite you to speak at our community event this weekend." Marcus hesitated. He wasn't used to being in the spotlight, but something about Evelyn's words struck a chord. "Thank you," he said. "I'd be honored." At the event, Marcus shared his story with a room full of people. He spoke about the importance of kindness, the struggles he had faced, and how small acts of compassion could make a big difference. The audience hung on his every word, and when he finished, the room erupted in applause. After the event, several people approached him, offering words of encouragement and even job opportunities. One man, a local café owner, handed Marcus his card. "We could use someone like you at our place," he said. "Someone who cares about people." That night, as Marcus walked home, he felt something he hadn't felt in days: hope. The kindness he had shown to a stranger had come back to him in ways he never expected. Fired for doing the right thing, Marcus now had a chance to turn his misfortune into something greater. The journey wasn't over, but Marcus was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that standing up for what was right was always worth it. The days that followed the community event marked a turning point for Marcus. Calls and messages of support kept pouring in, and it became clear that his story had touched far more lives than he ever imagined. What had started as a single act of kindness had grown into a movement, one that Marcus wasn't about to let fade away. Among the people who reached out was a local news station, asking if Marcus would be willing to share his story on air. Reluctant at first, he eventually agreed, realizing that his experience could inspire others to stand up against unfair treatment. Sitting under the bright lights of the studio, Marcus recounted the day he helped the elderly woman and the events that followed. "I didn't think twice about it," he said during the interview. "She needed help, and I did what I thought was right. Getting fired for that. It hurt. But the support I've received has shown me that kindness still matters." The interview aired that evening, and within hours, Marcus's story gained even more traction. People from across the country sent messages, offering everything from job opportunities to donations. But one message stood out: a woman claiming to be the granddaughter of the elderly lady he had helped. "Hi, Marcus," the message began. "My name is Sarah, and I'm the granddaughter of the woman you helped at the diner. My grandmother told me about your kindness, and when we saw what happened to you, we were heartbroken. I'd love to meet you and thank you in person." A week later, Marcus found himself sitting in a small cafe, waiting for Sarah and her grandmother. The moment they walked in, he recognized the elderly woman instantly. She looked healthier now, her steps more confident, and her face lit up when she saw him. "Marcus," she said, taking his hands in hers, "I've been waiting to thank you properly. What you did for me that day. You didn't just give me coffee. You gave me hope." Marcus smiled, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "It was the least I could do," he replied. Sarah joined in, explaining how much the gesture had meant to their family. "When we heard what happened to you, we knew we couldn't stay silent. My grandmother's been telling everyone about your kindness, and it's inspired so many people." As they talked, Sarah revealed that she worked for a non-profit organization focused on helping underserved communities. "We could use someone like you," she said. "Your story is proof of how one act of kindness can change lives. Would you consider working with us?" Marcus was taken aback. The thought of channeling his experience into something meaningful excited him. "I'd love to," he said, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Over the next few weeks, Marcus began working with Sarah's non-profit, organizing initiatives to support the elderly and underserved. His role allowed him to not only give back, but also share his story to inspire others. Through community events, fundraisers, and outreach programs, Marcus found himself at the center of a movement built on compassion and resilience. But the story didn't end there. News of his involvement with the non-profit caught the attention of local businesses, and one day, Marcus received a call that would change everything. One afternoon, Marcus received an unexpected phone call from a prominent local restaurateur, Mr. Donovan, who owned a chain of successful cafes and bistros. "Marcus," Donovan began, "I've been following your story, and I'm incredibly impressed. Your resilience and kindness are qualities I value deeply in people. I'd like to meet with you to discuss an opportunity." Marcus agreed, curious but cautious. A few days later, he found himself in Donovan's sleek modern office. As they spoke, Marcus shared his journey, emphasizing his desire to create meaningful change through his work. Donovan listened intently, nodding as Marcus explained his newfound passion for helping others. "I'll be honest," Donovan said, leaning forward. "I don't just want to offer you a job. I want to offer you a partnership. I believe you have the vision and the heart to run a business that truly makes a difference." The proposal was both thrilling and overwhelming. Donovan explained that he wanted Marcus to take over one of his smaller cafes, with the freedom to implement his own ideas and values. "I want this to be a place where people feel cared for, not just the customers but the staff too. And I can't think of anyone better to lead it than you." Marcus was speechless. After years of working tirelessly for others, the chance to run his own establishment felt like a dream come true. "I don't know what to say," he finally replied. "Thank you for believing in me." Over the next few weeks, Marcus threw himself into the project. The cafe, which had been struggling under previous management, was in need of a complete overhaul. Marcus worked closely with Donovan to redesign the menu, refresh the interior, and hire a new team. But more importantly, he focused on creating an environment where kindness and respect were at the core of everything they did. The staff Marcus hired were people who, like him, had faced unfair treatment or struggled to find opportunities. He mentored them, sharing his own experiences and encouraging them to bring their best selves to work every day. The cafe quickly became known not just for its delicious food, but for its welcoming atmosphere and happy employees. Meanwhile, the non-profit work Marcus had been doing with Sarah and her grandmother continued to grow. They collaborated with the cafe to host community events, offering free meals for the elderly and raising funds for local charities. The combination of his leadership at the cafe and his involvement in the community cemented Marcus's reputation as a true hero. As word spread about the cafe's success, Marcus found himself at the center of yet another media spotlight. But this time, it wasn't just about his past, it was about the future he was building. Local news outlets featured stories about the cafe's transformation, and customers left glowing reviews online, praising Marcus's leadership and the positive environment he had created. One day, as Marcus stood behind the counter, greeting customers with his signature warm smile, he noticed a familiar face walk through the door. It was Mr. Calloway, his former manager from the diner. Calloway looked uneasy, shifting his weight as he approached the counter. "Marcus," Calloway began, his tone awkward, "I heard about what you've done here. I wanted to say I'm sorry for how I treated you. I was wrong." Marcus looked at him for a moment, his expression calm. "Thank you," he said simply. "But it's not about the past anymore. It's about what we do, moving forward." Calloway nodded, visibly humbled, before leaving the cafe. Marcus watched him go, feeling a sense of closure. The man who had fired him for doing the right thing was now witnessing the success that kindness and determination could create. Months later, Marcus's cafe had become a beloved staple in the community. Customers from all walks of life flocked to the warm, welcoming space, drawn not just by the food, but by the atmosphere of kindness and respect that Marcus had cultivated. His story had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that resilience and compassion could triumph over adversity. The cafe's success inspired Marcus to think bigger. With Donovan's support, he began planning to open additional locations, each one designed to provide opportunities for people who had faced challenges like he once did. The new cafes would focus on hiring individuals who had been overlooked, single parents, veterans, and those re-entering the workforce after setbacks. For Marcus, it wasn't just about running a business. It was about creating a legacy of change. Meanwhile, his collaboration with Sarah and her non-profit continued to flourish. Together, they launched a program to provide meals and companionship for the elderly, ensuring no one in the community felt forgotten. Marcus often found himself reflecting on the elderly woman who had unknowingly sparked this journey, her small act of gratitude forever etched in his memory. One evening, as Marcus closed up the cafe, he paused to look around the room. The tables were empty, the lights dimmed, but the space buzzed with the energy of what it represented. From the laughter of customers to the growth of his staff, every corner of the cafe was a testament to the power of standing up for what's right. Just as he was about to lock the door, Sarah walked in with her grandmother. The elderly woman, now much healthier and more vibrant, handed Marcus a small envelope. "We wanted to give you this," Sarah said with a smile. Marcus opened the envelope to find a handwritten letter and an old photograph. The letter expressed gratitude for his kindness and the inspiration it had given their family, while the photo showed the elderly woman standing in front of the cafe on its opening day. Tears welled in Marcus's eyes as he realized how far he had come. "What you've built here," the elderly woman said, "is more than just a cafe. It's a reminder that one act of kindness can change lives. You've done that, Marcus, not just for me, but for this entire community." Humbled and overwhelmed, Marcus hugged her. "Thank you," he said softly. "But I couldn't have done it without the support of people like you." As the years passed, Marcus's story continued to inspire others. He became a mentor to aspiring entrepreneurs, sharing his journey and encouraging them to lead with compassion. His cafes grew into a network of safe, welcoming spaces, and his impact on the community became a legacy that would last for generations. For Marcus, it was never about fame or recognition. It was about proving that kindness, even in the face of adversity, had the power to create something extraordinary. And as he stood in his cafe, surrounded by the laughter and warmth of his community, he knew that the moment he chose to help an elderly woman had been the beginning of something far greater than he ever imagined. Marcus's journey began with a simple act of kindness, helping an elderly woman in need. What followed was a whirlwind of injustice, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. Fired for doing what was right, Marcus could have let bitterness consume him. Instead, he turned his pain into purpose, building a cafe that stood as a symbol of compassion and fairness. Through his leadership, Marcus proved that kindness isn't a weakness, it's a strength that can transform lives. From mentoring employees to uplifting his community, Marcus's story is a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, even when the odds seem stacked against you. His cafe didn't just serve food, it served hope, reminding everyone who walked through its doors that one act of goodness could spark a ripple effect far greater than anyone could imagine. And as Marcus continued to expand his legacy, his story became a beacon of light for anyone who's ever faced injustice and dared to rise above it. Description: fired for doing the right thing. Marcus's story begins with an act of kindness that cost him his job. After saving an elderly woman in need, he faced humiliation and injustice, but instead of giving up, he turned his pain into purpose. Watch as Marcus rises above the odds, transforming his life and his community with compassion and resilience. From being fired at a diner to creating a thriving café that inspires countless others, his journey proves that one act of kindness can change everything. This is a story of courage, redemption, and the power of standing up for what's right. Don't miss the incredible journey that turned a moment of injustice into a legacy of hope. Subscribe for more inspiring stories. Like and share if this story moved you. Tell us, what would you have done in Marcus's shoes?